Good afternoon, everybody. This is Michael Nelson with TLC Tech. I want to thank you very much for attending our webinar on Breach Secure Now. Today we have Chris Gross with us, who's going to walk through how the system works. We've talked to a lot of you already in the security meetings that we've had, and we're continuing to have with you all. This product we have found, we looked for a long time to find the perfect product to be able to not just do dark web monitoring, but also to be able to help our partners educate their staff and help them understand that security is an ongoing, continual process. Real quick, just for sound check, Julie or Nellie, would you put in the question window and let me know that we're okay with sound and that you can already see the first slide deck of the first line of defense? And then we're going to get going. So I'd like to introduce you to Chris. Okay, good. We've got both of them saying yes. So Chris, go ahead and take it away. And thank you very much for helping us today.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Michael. Like Michael said, what we're going to be talking about today is the first line of defense. What we call the first line of defense is really human security, the end user aspect of your organization, how to really secure those end users. I want to talk a little bit about just the general cybersecurity environment first. What are some threats today? We'll talk about what are some vulnerabilities in your organization, what the impact of those vulnerabilities are, and then we'll jump into the product and actually show you some of what we offer at Breach Secure Now. So with that, let me jump to the next slide here. We'll talk a little bit about the evolution of today's threats. It is an ever-changing environment, and more you're probably seeing cybersecurity in the media. You're seeing things about maybe organizations that you're close to, organizations that you know that have experienced some of these threats, experienced some of these cybersecurity incidents. Probably what's the biggest and most common cybersecurity threat today is ransomware. I'm sure you've heard about some of the classic ones like the Colonial Pipeline this year or last year at this point. And you might know a little bit about it, but I just want to talk a little bit about how ransomware itself, as the biggest threat to most organizations now when it comes to cybersecurity, I want to talk about how ransomware is evolving as well. So one of the biggest evolutions that we're seeing in ransomware is you have your classic ransomware, which if you know what classic ransomware is, the classic is basically, it's a malware. It's going to infect your computer, your systems. It does that just like any malware. You click on a link, you open some attachment, maybe you go to a malicious website, and that computer, that device, your system gets infected. And once that malware is launched in that system, what it actually does is it encrypts your files. It encrypts them. It doesn't let you get access to your system, your files. It's basically rendered useless. Why they call it ransomware is the cyber criminal will actually require you or ask that you pay a ransom, whether that's some amount of money or cryptocurrency. They're going to not let you get access to those systems until you pay that. Now, this can be extremely impactful to your organization. If it's a critical system, say this is your email or your CRM or a system that you're using every day and you don't have access to it, that could have huge implications for your organization. What we're seeing in evolution of some of these threats is a lot of the time, ransomware is not classic ransomware anymore. Sometimes they don't even ask you for a ransom. Sometimes this malware is so readily available that they're just encrypting your systems with no ability to decrypt it, to get the key. They don't even give you a ransom. They're just obliterating your system. Unfortunately, that's one of the newest threats of ransomware that we're seeing now. What I've actually seen in the past year, one of the most common threats, and 50% of ransomware actually has this, is we see that it's not just encrypting files, it's not just limiting the access that you have to those files, but ransomware is actually going to get into the system and exfiltrate data. They'll take some of your sensitive data, they won't let you get access to your system, and now they have some of your data. So now when they give you that ransom, it's not just your system's at risk, and maybe you say, hey, my system, I can't get access to it, but I'll just restore it and restore my backups. The big threat of them having some of your sensitive data is they'll actually put that out in the dark web and they'll say, we're going to publish this on the dark web or publicly if you don't pay this ransom. That can have huge implications for your organization. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to give some insight into some changes that you're seeing in ransomware, some changes that you're seeing in this biggest threat, cybersecurity threat to organizations, and it is ever changing. This is just the newest variant, and there will be many more to come. So it's definitely something that would be best avoided if possible. So let's talk a little bit about some common misconceptions when it does come to ransomware, when it comes to cybersecurity in general. One of the biggest vectors is obviously the human vector, and we're going to be talking about that today. But when I talk about human security, a lot of clients that I talk to, a lot of partners that I talk to, they say my employees are smarter than that. They're not going to fall for one of these scams. They're not going to click on a phishing email. They're smart people. They won't do it. I'm just going to hit on these at a high level right now, some of these common misconceptions. But I can tell you this one for sure, this one is not true. It doesn't matter who you are. I know cybersecurity professionals that have fallen for these scams before because of how convincing they can be. And the reason why they're convincing is that it's no longer just an email that looks like an Amazon email being sent to you. These are emails using information about you, using a profile that they can build off of. Maybe it's information about you out on the internet. Maybe it's dark web information that was compromised about you. They know who you are. They know what you do. They can impersonate a vendor. They can act like someone that you know in order to trick you. So it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how smart your employees are. This is something that you need to focus on. My employees don't have time. We'll talk a little bit more about this one. We make this really easy, no more than 5 minutes a week for your employees to keep security hygiene and keep the idea of what kind of scams are out there, what are the latest scams, keep that in the front of their mind. We're too small of an organization to get targeted. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. All types and sizes of organizations can be targeted. We don't have valuable data. Like I said, there's valuable data in every organization. Whether or not you have compliance regulations to protect the data that you're holding, or maybe it's just some data that could hurt your organization if competitors saw it, if your customers saw it. Maybe just your employee data, right? You have W-2s and you have social security numbers of your own employees. Protecting that is important as well. And the last one is we're covered if a breach happens. This one I hear a lot is that we have cyber insurance. We don't care. If we get a breach, we have insurance that will cover the breach and will recover. The issue is with something like ransomware, when you have downtime, you're losing money every single second that your organization can't operate. Some cyber insurance will actually help with that and some won't. So you want to make sure you are covered for that type of event. You could have the best cyber insurance in the world though, and one issue that we see is that you can't recover from something like PR damage, right? If your reputation is damaged because you lost some of your customers' information or your vendor or employees' information, it's very hard to recover that reputation. So no amount of cyber insurance can cover that, which is why it's best if you don't have the breach to begin with, or if you can minimize the risk of that breach happening to begin with. Just to dive a little bit deeper into the types of organizations that are targeted. The we too small misconception, it doesn't work. And one of the reasons why is we actually see that small businesses and medium-sized businesses are more targeted than the largest business. And a lot of people will think along the lines of, hey, they're going to go after the big fish that have a lot, right? But most of those big fish, they have the technology to protect themselves. They have more resources when it comes to maybe in-person staff. Maybe they have more resources when it comes to remediation, or at least that's what the cyber criminals see in their mind, is that it's easier to go after a smaller organization and not get caught and just do it multiple times than to go after one of the big fish here. Let's talk a little bit about the impact if the breach actually does happen to your organization. The first thing that happens when you have a breach, you're probably going to call your insurance company and try to get coverage for it. What we see on a later time, right, is if you have already claimed a breach, if you are renewing your insurance, they're going to ask you about that. And a lot of times they not only raise your insurance rates, but they're going to require that you have implemented some additional security controls to remediate the gaps in your systems. Again, this can cost a lot of money. when it comes to the increase in rates. This can cost a lot when it comes to the additional controls that are needed to be implemented. We talked about reputation loss already. It's something that's very hard to recover. And if you're losing customers, if you're losing vendors, you can lose revenue as well. Downtime with ransomware, this is probably the biggest one other than reputation. Like I already said, you can be down for an extended period of time because your critical systems, things like your EMR, if you're medical, maybe it's your CRM, your customer relation management system. A lot of times if these are down, you can't operate your business. And as a business owner or stakeholder, what you want to ask yourself is, how long can I go without that tool, without my critical system? How long can I go without operating my business before there's major impact to my organization? That loss of time, that loss of money during that time can be devastating to an organization. So when you're thinking about a remediation plan, you're thinking about, if I do have ransomware, what am I going to do? Make sure that your plan involves that number of how long, when is the red line of when I'm down for a long enough time where my business cannot recover from it. And make sure that you can reduce the time to remediate by enough where you're going to be able to recover your systems, start operating again without having major impacts to your organization. So that's a little bit of the threats out there. That's a little bit of what the actual impact to your organization could be if one of these vulnerabilities were exploited. Let's talk a little bit about why human security relates so much to this threat. So what we see is that all of these breaches, all of the different types of security incidents that happen, out of all of them, about 92% of them or more is caused by human error. Some human is the one that makes the initial click, that does the initial action, that causes a data breach. And this is someone within your organization. Could be a mistake. A lot of times it's a mistake. It could be they fell for a scam. They did something they shouldn't be doing when it comes to good security hygiene, and they were the cause of that data breach. Where we see ransomware as one example, as the biggest vector for getting into an organization, is phishing emails themselves. And training users on phishing emails and how to identify them is extremely important. Making sure they know what scams is extremely important. But what we found is that training actually works. Is that over time, when we train someone, you see the amount of times that they're clicking on a phishing email that you're sending out, or they're clicking on a simulated phishing email, that reduces. We see it about 64% very quickly after rolling out a security program. So training does work, and minimizing this risk that is the most potent vector for these attacks is extremely important, and it's something that can really help you in the long run with avoiding the breach situation. So a little bit different aspect here that's important in our security approach I just want to quickly talk about. Human security is important, but also in the event that something can go wrong, it will go wrong, and having that cyber insurance coverage is really important. We already talked about what the benefit could be, right? You have coverage on your malware incident, your ransomware incident, social engineering, e-theft. It's great to have monetary coverage. It's great to be able to say that I won't have to take it out of my pocket. That's all benefits of cyber insurance. For me, what's an even better, well, just as good of a benefit that most of these cyber insurance providers give to you is, in the event of a breach, most of these providers actually have professional resources. They'll have things like privacy legal help. They'll have things like PR, maybe, if there is some kind of PR that can be done to minimize the impact to your reputation. They can help you with that. A lot of them even provide a breach coach, which in a ransomware situation could be really helpful. This breach coach is somebody who's done it before. They'll tell you, what's the best strategy for paying the ransom if necessary, or not paying the ransom. What do you need to do in terms of your own compliance? So it's very helpful to have professional resources to help you mitigate the impact of the breach quickly. The last thing that you want to be when you have some kind of incident is flat-footed, and a lot of these providers give that as a benefit. So I would definitely check out your current coverage, make sure you have the correct amount of coverage, And make sure your provider also has some of these resources for you. If there is a breach, make sure you get the number of their breach response helpline. Definitely helpful.
And also for our partners on the call, if you want to forward me a copy of your cyber liability policy, I've got a couple of people that can look at that and make sure that you're well covered.
So let's take these two and we'll put it into what we call our layered security strategy. And the first line of defense here, like we said, is employee training and defense, making sure you're strengthening that first line. And then behind that, you have things you're probably doing already: firewall, antivirus, malware, system patching, encryption, backup. These are the things that's going to account for maybe the other vectors of attack that aren't human related. Also, if an employee does make mistakes, this will help prevent this kind of malware or some other attack vector from moving laterally to different systems. It's going to help you remediate if there is a ransomware incident. So these are really important. And the last one here, like I said before, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Make sure you have good coverage in case of that incident. What we're going to focus on today is really this first layer here and what Breach Secure Now can do and TLC Tech can do in helping to strengthen this first line with employee training and defense. So what we do is what we call our multi-step approach to employee security. We start off with the dark web, and we'll actually look at your domains present on the dark web. We'll look at all of your email addresses on your domains and see which employees have some kind of data connected to their work email address out there on the dark web. That data could be something like a password. That data could also be something more personal. Maybe it's security questions. Maybe it's going to be an address, some other type of connections. Maybe it's your role in the organization, people you know, processes you do. They'll actually sell profiles of individuals on the dark web, and attackers or cyber criminals will use that to create those sophisticated attacks against you, which is why the dark web's so dangerous. Is it's not just a password. That's one of the misconceptions of the dark web, is that once you have an email address and password on the dark web and you go change your password, make sure none of your other accounts are using that password anymore, you're totally protected. The real issue of the dark web is the other person identifiable information that you can't change. Your security questions. A lot of times you're not going to be able to change those. They're information about you. Other things like your role in the organization, you're not going to be able to change that. And those are things that will be used in those sophisticated attacks against you. So we're able to see each individual's risk out there on the dark web. We're able to display that. Baseline security training is the next step here. We'll give each user a good baseline. We have an assessment that they'll be able to go through after they take their training, and it gives them a good baseline to get started with basic security knowledge. It's going to help them get started on the right foot. Simulated phishing is the next one. We'll test them against real or simulated phishing emails, and we'll see if they're going to click on those emails. Are they susceptible to clicking on the links in a scam email sent against them? The biggest focus of what we do is continuous training. Like I said, we have the baseline security training, but we strongly believe that once a year training is never enough. And one of the biggest reasons why is it's kind of like exercise, right? It's January right now. There's New Year's resolutions to go, and I'm going to go exercise 3 times a week, 4 times a week for the next year. There's just going to be my lifestyle. But if you stop doing that in January, right, it's not going to help you a whole lot when you get to March, right? Or you get to June and it's beach time. It's not going to help you a whole lot. Training is very similar, right? If you do your baseline security training and you stop after that, you're going to forget most of what you learned in 2 months, and you're not going to know what the latest scams are. You're not going to remember what's good security hygiene. So what we provide is continuous education, and we do that through what we call weekly micro trainings, monthly security newsletters that are bite-sized pieces of training. They should never take more than 5 minutes. They should take less. And what you're doing is you're constantly reminding people what is good security hygiene, what are the latest scams, keeping it in the front of their mind and making sure that they're going to think before they click on that email next time. They're going to think before they do something somebody's telling them on the phone. They're going to think before that next scam is successful. That's from an employee aspect. There's a couple organizational things that we'll do as well. We give security policies and procedures and a risk assessment that aligns with those policies and procedures to kind of give you a good baseline of controls that should be in your organization and give you an idea of what you're doing currently and seeing, does that align with industry standards, that align with the policies and procedures that you need to protect your organization. So that's a lot right there, right? And there's a lot of reporting that goes into that. But what we've created is we take all this data and we've created our employee vulnerability assessment to put all of this data into one dashboard and actually assign a risk to each employee. We'll be able to actually see for each employee, are they on the dark web? Are they clicking on phishing emails? Are they taking training? And the users that are not, the users that aren't taking training, they're on the dark web, they're clicking on phishing, we'll be able to display that they are high risk to the organization. These are the users that could be the cause of your next data breach. That's going to be your cue to maybe give that user a tap on the shoulder, make sure that they're improving their score. You have the ability to set these minimum requirements to make sure that everybody in the organization is reducing that risk to the organization. And what we call this employee vulnerability assessment is really your metric for doing so. This is really the crown jewel of the platform here, and I can give you a quick demo if we have some time today.
Yeah, Chris, that's going to be important for them to see the back end side of that.
Yeah, I'll definitely show that. What I'll do real quick is there's one last slide here, just talking about our Outlook add-on that we call Catchfish. And this is a really important part that adds on to that continuous education aspect. This is an Office 365 add-on. It's not required, but it's definitely a value if you have Office 365. This is an add-on that you'll see on mobile, web version of Outlook, and desktop version. And this allows you to take the training right in Outlook, where people are spending most of their time. Usually, you don't have to leave there. You don't have to log into a platform to go take training. You can take the weekly training without logging in, just by clicking on a button in under 5 minutes, again, trying to make that quick and easy on a weekly basis. In addition, Catchfish trains on simulated phishing emails. It'll help if they identify a phishing email, they'll get some points back with that employee vulnerability assessment. And it trains on real emails on where their eyes should be going. So if they click on Catchfish for a real email, they can actually see where their eyes should be going in order for them to identify, is this a phishing email or not? Again, that's part of continuous education, trying to teach them on real emails, how they can identify future emails, future scam emails, phishing emails, using those tips. So let's do this. This is the end of the slide deck. Let me give you a quick demo here, just of what the actual platform looks like.
And while Chris is queuing that up, if anybody has any questions now or during this part where it's going to kind of walk through the simulation, just go ahead and pop them into the questions tab and I'll call them out for Chris.
Michael, can you see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what I'm showing you right now in my dashboard, this is the end user view. This is what your employees would see when they log into the platform. So this is the employee vulnerability assessment. The big eye draw here, this employee secure score, it's kind of like a credit score. It's out of 800 points. The closer to 800 you are, the better you're doing on the platform. This is the metric that is basically assigning risk to the individual, to your end user. If you have an employee that's taking training, their score is going to go up. Taking training and doing well on it pushes the score up. Taking the weekly micro trainings on a regular basis pushes that score up. But doing things like clicking on one of those simulated phishing emails lowers their score. Being on the dark web will lower their score. And they'll be able to actually see what their score is. And one of the best parts is they'll anonymously be able to see how well they rank up compared to other users in the organization. This piece, a lot of our clients really like because this is the gamification aspect of the platform. You can set minimum requirements here. You can incentivize them to get to the top of the leaderboard, maybe with a gift card or some other incentive. But this really pushes people not be at the bottom of the leaderboard to get to the top, whatever they can do to do that, come in, take micro trainings, keep improving their security posture to get to the top of the leaderboard here. And they can easily see how they can improve their score here. All of these other tabs are just how they're going to do things, like take the annual training, micro trainings, see their risk on the dark web, look at newsletters, or acknowledge our policies.
And Chris, if you could touch on just click on the micro training. These are the emails that they're going to get on a weekly basis. And I know that Breach Secure now within the next few days is actually updating their catalog with the more recent, but they can go in and if they missed an email, this is where they can go in and find the ability to do, to get more of the micro training. So this just pulls up
Exactly.
and you can see all the different things, the social media scams. I watched the food scam one today and it was really intriguing because I get food delivered and there was some good information on that. And we are getting a couple of questions here, Chris. If I'll hold those for just a second, let you get back to kind of what you're showing here, and then we'll go into the questions.
Yeah, just exactly what you said, Michael, right? Is we're trying to stick with current topics, right? Holiday scams are huge a couple of weeks ago. So we're trying to give current scams and up-to-date information and general cybersecurity knowledge and hygiene tips mixed in there. So very quick 2-minute video, 4-question quiz. We keep this short, under 5 minutes, like I was saying. And this gets delivered via email as well as they can take it with that Outlook add-on.
And the thing I like most about this aspect of it is that it's not just about not clicking on links. It's actually teaching them all these different ways. There's so many different ways that they're coming at us these days. And this is a really good way of finding, the food scams, like I said. There was one on the BEC scams and the CEO fraud. There's just really good information in these. I've gone through and done a lot of these trainings. They're short, they're sweet, and it gets people thinking about security. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a question, are simulated emails going to get through most spam security filtering? So if you're coming through with us as a partner, yes, we're going to have to we have settings that we need to put on Office 365 so that it will actually let the simulated phishing expeditions make it through the system. We want to let those get through. So we take care of that on our side, Tim. And Chris, correct, if you've got anything to add, let me know there.
Yeah.
And Chad is asking, confirm that the weekly continuous training requirements is a 1 5-minute quiz every week or some weekly training emails instead of quizzes. So basically, there is a weekly email that will come. It's your micro training email. And Chris, do you have an example that you could show of that?
I don't have it pulled up right now,
okay.
But it's pretty straightforward. It's just going to have what their current ESS score is, and it's going to ask them to take this micro training. They'll click on a link and watch the video and log in and take their training.
So start to finish, Chad, it takes about 5 minutes. They don't have to click on it. They can ignore it that week. But it is going to come into their mailbox every week saying, hey, here's your little micro training. The ESS score that Chris talked about, the employee secure score, like their credit score. That's something that most all of you on here are either going to be the owner or you're going to be the person that would be in looking at. If Chris, you want to go ahead and click on my company. This is the company dashboard where you as the administrator can actually see everybody's name. The employees on their view, they don't get the My Company. They only see the My Dashboard. The company admin will have the My Company tab, and this is where you can see who's failing, what the scores are. What we suggest is you come up with a minimum threshold number, you talk about it with your staff, you give them X amount of weeks or a month to get their secure score up, and then you make this. There's a lot of different ways. You can incentivize it, you can disincentivize the other direction and say, we expect you to be at a minimum of 600 if you want to stay with the company. Again, if they take the annual training, they're doing occasional, Chris, what do you think? Keeping it above 600 would be the annual training, taking quizzes at least once or twice a month?
Yeah, absolutely. Over time, your score will go down if you don't take the micro training. So once or twice a month is going to keep you above that 630. Probably a 600 threshold. 630 is probably a little bit more than that. So.
Okay, and it's really, again, getting them to think about security. That's the whole reason behind doing this, is that we want them to think about it, learn from it. And the trainings, there was one that talked about Facebook scams and how what they do on their personal Facebook accounts can really leak back into the business world, because of information, and how they talked about when Chris was talking about questions getting sold on the dark web. So, and all of us hate these. When you go in to do the passwords, it asks you to do 2 or 3 or 4 security questions in case you lose your password. Well, if that company, and it's often, what street did you grow up on, and what high school, blah, blah, blah. If that company's database gets breached and sold on the dark web, now your questions, that the answers that you've given to those questions, are also available on the dark web. And that's why having an overall understanding of security and security hygiene in general is becoming so much more critical.
Yeah.
Another question says, employees also use company phones. I noticed recently that he's been getting a text message asking me that the phone has been compromised. How do you handle those scams other than deleting the text?
Yeah, it's becoming more and more common for texting
Yeah,
scams, and there's not a whole lot that you can do with a personal cell phone, right? The idea is really educating them on what is a scam.
yeah.
Scam. Deleting the text is probably the best way to prevent it, right? If you're doing business on your phone, there's other security that we can recommend. If you have your email on your phone, make sure you have um, encryption. Make sure you have the ability to wipe that phone if necessary, but it is definitely a big risk that we're seeing more and more as we kind of cross into personal devices being used for work purposes. So
And unfortunately, that's very similar to saying, I want a telephone number, but I want to be guaranteed that nobody could ever make a crank phone call to me. The way that systems are set up to make communication easy.
exactly.
Just housekeeping, we're at 1:33, so we're a little bit over. We're happy to stay on and answer questions as long as you want. Chris, do you have anything else we need to show? And then we'll finish up with more questions.
I think we hit on all of it. There's definitely a lot of reporting that we have here, but the basics is all right here in this initial dashboard that you see. The employee vulnerability assessment, like you said, real names here, so you can right away see who are the people that might need a tap on the shoulder, who are the people that are doing great. These are the users that might be the cause of your next data breach down at the bottom here. So it's really something that gives you the idea of this needs to be addressed.
We had a question about pricing. So, Chad, we do have a setup fee, and then it's based upon the total number of users. It's not actually based upon per user pricing. So reach out to either me or your partner success manager, and they can get a quote for this. Are there any other questions that we have? Okay, again, we'll hang out for another couple of minutes, see if any more questions show up. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to attend, find out more about Breach Secure Now. Again, we think it's a really incredible product. We're going to be bringing it. If we haven't had our security meeting with you yet, we'll be discussing this with you in the security meeting again. We'll hang out for just another minute, see if there's any more questions that show up. And if not, thank you very much for all of your time.